coast to coast on a high note here.
How you doing, man?
New day, new time, same coast to coast. I'm feeling good. What about you, Mark Gunnels?
I feel pretty good. I feel better after a win, but that didn't happen, obviously.
That did not happen. No, it was prime time. All the stage was set. It was very cold. I got a text from you. It was like pregame, maybe you hit me like first quarter, yeah, something like that.
It's about 30 minutes for the kickoff.
Man, it's Lambeau's a special place. I see why people put it on their sports bucket lists every year. Like the fan experience, the fan buy-in, the atmosphere, just everything around it, the tailgating. It's I'm glad I got the real, like the snow and everything. I'm glad I could be in the building for it. Obviously, it wasn't a win, but it was still fun, and it was still even close. You know what I mean? Like it was still one of those games where it was like came down to the end.
How would you compare Lambeau just overall to Arrowhead?
That's it's general, but I mean they both have they're like cousins. You know what I mean? They both are from a certain NFL era. They definitely both have that fan buy-in that I was talking about. But Lambeau has done a good job, and maybe this is something that KC will look at here soon, or maybe for their next move potentially, is all this talk about the Chiefs potentially moving somewhere. Like I think they did a good job of at Lambeau, what I'm talking about, like molding some like new parts of it, adding like some updated touches, like added some their title town area with like the tailgating and they have like an ice skating rink over there, and there's like a snow sled area too. Like they've done a good job of mixing the new school with the old school, and it still has that feel of kind of that traditional NFL vibe.
Okay. Yeah, definitely my bucket list. I'm about to get out there one year just to say I went. It's one of those marquee venues that you want to go to, like Wrigley Field, the Big House in Michigan. You know, it's in that elk for sure.
I'm glad you didn't mention Allen Fieldhouse.
Oh, Allen Fieldhouse is definitely in that same elk. 100%.
Yeah. You know what else is on that list for me? AT&T Stadium, baby. That's where we're going to be for the Cotton Bowl. Shout out to Missouri Tigers. I have not been to AT&T Stadium. I've been outside, but I've never been inside. So this will be my first time walking around Jerry World, getting the feel. And where's KU going? Are going to the GoDaddy Bowl or something? I forgot.
Yeah, they're playing UNLV, and I think it's in Arizona for sure.
You forgot the name?
I got the name, man. They're playing in there we are. They're the Guaranteed Rate Bowl in Phoenix, Arizona against UNLV. They're 14-point favorites.
I got Barry Odom. Shout out to Tigers. Former Missouri head coach Barry Odom got his name in the mix for all these Coach of the Year. Really stamp it off. He could be even more of a true son here if he goes ahead and handles business in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl against the Kansas Jayhawks. Let's get into it. Chiefs Coast to Coast, Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network, episode 67 with the guys, Mark Gunnels in LA, Aaron Ladd here in Kansas City, Steven Serta behind the board as we break down the Chiefs offense going cold against the Green Bay Packers in prime time. The good, the bad, and the ugly from that one. Mark Gunnels and the Fade Gunnels pack wins in Vegas. Let's go. I was very excited about that. Mark Gunnels stumbles himself in Vegas once again. We'll try and pick himself up by his bootstraps later in the episode, and then we'll dissect Kansas City's next game at Arrowhead against the visiting Buffalo Bills. Can't have Chiefs Coast to Coast without you all, the family, the listeners, the audience, the faithful. Appreciate y'all tapping in with us, whether it's on X, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on YouTube, wherever it is. Let us know where you're listening from. Daniel Berry's already chimed in on YouTube, says, hey, we got a voicemail later in the show that we'll play talking about kind of Mark Gunnels' origins of being a Chiefs fan. Maybe he'll tell us like how he first became a Chiefs fan. Maybe we'll dig into that voicemail a little bit later if you want to be part of the show. 816-514-1267. Let's just get straight into the Chiefs recap.
Mahomes avoids. He's a magician. Chiefs Recap.
27-19, the final. Packers over the Kansas City Chiefs. My first note on this game as we try and dissect what went wrong for Kansas City is another slow start. You posted on X kind of something that I thought in the moment. It was almost a carbon copy of that Raiders opening where in the Raiders game they go down 14-0. In this one, it was 14-3. But after two offensive drives for the Green Bay Packers, Mark Gunnels, Jordan Love had more passing touchdowns than incompletions. It's something we had not expected maybe coming into this matchup, considering how well Kansas City's defense had played on the year. But once again, in this one, in prime time, Kansas City kind of has to get it going from behind.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this had to do with Drew Tranquil going down early in the game. Talking about his backup middle linebacker in that situation, obviously without Nick Bolton there, he had the green dot, and you could tell after. I know you were there live, so you probably didn't see the replays on TV, but there was multiple times where there was miscommunication. Like guys weren't sure where to line up. They were late in getting to their spots, and the Packers had already hiked the football. Like that happened a lot, and it allowed them to get some open running lanes and stay on schedule. And then at that point, you're on your heels because now you don't know what they're going to do because they're so balanced, right? They're mixing up the run in the pass. So I really think that was a big reason why they had their worst performance defensively. And then obviously Brian Cook going down also not too long after. So you're talking about your starting middle linebacker and one of your starting safeties. It's rough. And then you're already without Nick Bolton there. So you're getting really thin at linebacker. And then you're getting thin in the secondary as well. But, at the same time, give the Packers credit. They had a good game plan. I thought maybe it was a situation where their scripted plays when they ran out, things are going to start kind of calming down a little bit. Because, the scripted plays, typically guys do well in that situation. We saw with the Raiders last week. And then after that, it was pretty much nothing rest of the game. But that wasn't the case this time. And you got to tip your cap, man. They've won 3 in a row, I believe, just fresh off beating the Lions a week before on Thanksgiving Day. And they look like they're going to be a playoff team in the NFC now.
Yeah, Packers getting hot at the right time brought some heat to the frozen tundra. One of the things I think kind of added to the slow start for Kansas City was the woes in the red zone. Mark Gunnels, Kansas City goes 13 plays, 60 yards on their opening possession, but just settles for 3 points after the red zone sack. And then the second possession, there was 2 sacks once they got into the red zone. I posted one of them on X, just kind of a tough rep for Jawan Taylor. And when Green Bay comes out firing the way they do, you want to match. You want to go touchdown for touchdown, especially how efficient Jordan Love looked in those first 2 drives, picking up the third downs when they needed them. Kansas City's second offensive drive, 14 plays, 59 yards, and identically a 34-yard field goal for Harrison Butker. Butker's been playing lights out, but you obviously want the offense to get 7 points every time out there. This reminded me shades of that Denver Broncos game, the one that they were in Kansas City for, where KC just couldn't convert. I think that they were missed on their 5 chances in the red zone that time. And this is who KC has been offensively, Mark Gunnels. They've been inconsistent. They've played well in between the 20s, and then once they get into the 20s, they haven't been on the same page enough. Whoever you want to blame it on, offensive line, wide receivers, Patrick Mahomes, whatever, they haven't been consistent enough to show us that they can do it time in, time out, matching their opponents when their opponents started at a hot pace like this.
Yeah, and this didn't feel like the normal bad offensive game like we've seen before. Yeah, obviously they did stall out several times when they got in the red zone, but besides that, they were moving the ball generally the entire game. They only punted 1 time. Now I know the possessions were limited in this game. It wasn't like your typical you get the ball 9, 10 times. It was very limited. But at the same time, like I said, you only punt the ball 1 time. You had that Crazy interception. Obviously, that's been overanalyzed on X, on the all 22s that came out. The throw to Sky Moore. Whose fault was it? Was it Mahomes' fault? Was it Sky Moore's fault? I think it was the coaching staff's fault. Because why are you even running that play in that situation anyway? Like, we've seen time and time again that Mahomes and Sky Moore are not on the same page. And you're driving, you're in Packers territory, a very, very crucial point in the game. And you're lucky you didn't got the ball back. Obviously, you didn't have that much time, no timeouts. But that was the drive right there to really put your stamp on it, take a lead, and rely on your defense to get a stop and win the game and get out of there. But just bad timing on that play call, in my opinion. And I think that was the ultimate nail in the coffin there for the Kansas City Chiefs in Green Bay.
KC did eventually get it going, and maybe some tinkering or some nitpicking at their offensive strategy, or back to what you were saying about the coaching staff. Did KC go for two too early? So they score on the Isaiah Pacheco quick no huddle, caught Green Bay lacking. They get the too many men on the field penalty driving, and they convert in the red zone to start the second half. Green Bay matches it with the touchdown to Christian Watson, and then KC is chasing points from then on out. I didn't dislike the 2-point conversion when they did it. You were going to eventually need to go for two at some point mathematically, trying to catch touchdowns or trying to chase points. Are you nitpicking there day after money quarterback? Are you looking at that as, I mean, obviously they lost the game and they still were going to need 8 at the end, but did it go in the right order? Was the operation correct in your opinion?
I didn't mind it. I think it's one of those hindsight 2020 things. If you're discrediting it, I would have to see you in that moment and before it happened, and you're like, no, don't do it. And then if they didn't get it, now you're like, oh, see, I was right. But a lot of people would just typically do the hindsight thing. In the moment, they didn't really mind them going for it, but the fact that they didn't get it, now you're upset. So I'm not gonna be one of those people. I was fine with it at the time, and I'm still fine with it.
I would have liked a better play call in the moment. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah,
I think it was like the toss out left to Isaiah Pacheco behind the tight ends. Like, I didn't. If I'm going for two, I kind of want to.
I want it in Mahomes' hands.
That's what I was going to say. And also, like, Andy Reid has talked about this in the past. Like, when you're playing in those red zone situations, you're using like the boundaries kind of as sometimes you can use it as an extra defender. Sometimes you can use it as like an extra offensive player. Like, I want to spread it out as much as I can. I'm with you. I didn't hate the decision, but I didn't love the play call. I think that the two-point conversions and obviously like executing in the red zone, like that's going to be something that we've talked about before and we'll continue to talk about as this team gets closer to the playoffs.
And here's the thing too.
Go ahead.
Quick. When you put the ball in Mahomes' hands in that situation, you have the option of him running the football as well. And we've seen him time and time again. If nobody's open, he's not afraid to tuck it in and risk his body to get across that goal line. I mean, remember that play? I don't think it was 2-point. It was a touchdown. But remember last year against the Bengals, we did the Michael Jordan dunk thing in Cincinnati where Tony Romo lost his mind. It's like, that's Michael Jordan. That's Michael Jordan. Like, he would do something like that in that moment. So I love having both those options in play.
Can't talk Chiefs Packers without talking officiating, and I'm glad we're a couple days removed from it because it was another one of those situations, at least from my perspective, at least from the echo chamber that I use on social media. Like, there was a consensus that there were some missed calls down the stretch. Yes, the MVS one I thought was the most egregious. It looked like there was early contact made by the Packers defender there. The Mahomes running out of bounds, unnecessary roughness. I could see maybe where there is a little bit of both sides to it, but to me, if you're the defender, Mahomes is making no effort to continue to gain yardage. Like, he's clearly headed for the sideline. Like, you got to hold up there if you're Jonathan Owen. I don't think Simone Biles liked that play very much. But throughout the game, right, there was a lot of ticky-tack stuff. I think there was a holding on Creed Humphrey that came in and impacted this crew was under the microscope. Let's hear from Marquez Valdes-Scantling first about his perspective or his point of view on that final play that a lot of people think was a flag. The emotions after this one.
We lost. That's the emotion.
What'd you see on that last play? Looked like there was some contact there.
Yeah, I couldn't see anything because I was on the ground.
You feel like it was a flag?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's up for the officials. I can't control what they do or don't do.
Do you think it should have been?
I don't know, man. I didn't see it. I was on the ground, so I couldn't tell you. I know I tried to catch the ball and I couldn't.
What's so funny?
Because it's just funny how he answered that question in a way where he won't get fined, but you can tell what he really wanted to say. Like, I mean, something new, man. I couldn't see it. I was on. Next thing I know, I was on the ground. But, and I was on a different podcast and I talked about this as well. That is not why the Chiefs lost this game. Sure, it was definitely a pass interference, 100%. But the Chiefs shouldn't have even been in that situation. Like, not at all. And if you're at the point where you're begging for a flag just to even have a chance to tie the game, you didn't deserve to win, because you still have to get the 2-point conversion, and you still haven't won. It's still just a tie at that point. And not to mention, if they call that flag, I believe it was around 40-ish seconds on the clock. If you score on the next play, the Packers are going to have the ball with like 30-plus seconds, and all it needs is a field goal. And do you have trust in that defense to stop them and get in a field goal range with 30-plus seconds? I don't. So, yeah, sure. This should have been a flag 100%, but that's not one where I'm like, nah, that cost the Chiefs the game. That's not Saints Rams a few years ago in the divisional round. That's not, it's not one of them.
I didn't see anything wrong with that Saints Rams play, actually. I don't know what you're talking about.
You're crazy. Oh, because you're a Falcons fan. I bet you. Yeah, I bet you didn't. I had to find what's the correlation with that. Okay, sure.
Let's hear from Travis Kelce from the post-game locker room. Didn't talk very long, but he gave us a few things on his perspective of that MVS play.
Why he was rushing for Taylor Swift after the game?
Went wrong today.
I mean, that's a good football team, and they executed better than us. And that's the bottom line. We just got to keep rallying together and keep just fighting and growing together, man.
Looked like you had a pretty good year that passed to Marquez. I just wondered what your comments on that.
I ain't gonna blame this thing on anybody but ourselves, man.
Didn't play well enough to win, and KC has shown the propensity to be consistently inconsistent. And also, this is, and I said this on 610 earlier today, I'm doing C-Dots on Tuesday at 2:30. Would love to have y'all there as well. But, like, KC's not a quick strike offense anymore, Mark. Like, when they're down 8, need to go the length of the field, score, and get 2 points, that's a large undertaking. It's not the same team that was there for the 13 seconds where they could score in a blink of an eye and flip the field instantly. Like, it takes them picking up third downs. It takes everybody working in unison. Like, one of the things that really hurt, in my opinion, on that last drive, the first play is always so important of those drives when you need to go to the length of the field, get the score, get that octopus, right? Isaiah Pacheco drops the first play. And then there's a lot of balls near the hash marks Rashee Rice got to catch where it's like you pick up 8 yards, but you lose 15 seconds on that play. Like, the routes are not even big play routes, if you see what I'm saying. Like, it's not an offense currently that's consistent enough that can go out there and score in a pinch like that. And sure, there's a couple flags that could have gone either way that didn't help them. But ultimately, I think they have to look in the mirror on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, but what I will say on a positive note, speaking of Isaiah Pacheco, they were able to run the ball very, very efficiently. And I think that was a pretty welcome sign. And a lot of that stuff was between the guards up the middle. You know, he had 110 yards on 18 carries with a touchdown. Run super, super hard as usual. I thought that was a welcome sign. This Packers defense isn't just Swiss cheese, no pun intended. So I do think
Come on, man.
I do think
Come on, man.
you like that one. You like that one. I'm getting really good at this thing, man. But I do think that is something you could take away from this game moving forward. Now that you're in December, you're going to start playing in tougher elements as far as the weather, obviously, getting into January and playoff football. So I think having that in your back pocket, knowing that you can go to the frozen tundra or places like that if you do have to go on the road, because we're going to talk about that one seed. It's not a guarantee you're going to have the Arrowhead Invitational this year. It's definitely up in the air, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But I just think that is something you can build on moving forward, and you can still sell yourself on the thought of, hey, we still don't have McCole Hardman. I'm not saying he's saving everything. I knew you were gonna do that. I'm not saying he's the savior, but that's still an element to your offense that you haven't seen since he came back with the jet sweeps and the trickeration and things of that nature, getting him out in space where you can have a little cheat code and get a 20-yard, 30 yards to jumpstart your offense. I don't think his speed has gone away. So I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's going to just be the end all be.
What are you saying, Mark?
Still, I think
because it sounds like what you're saying to me is hold the presses, hold on, wait to judge this Chiefs offense. Don't write them off just yet. McCole Hardman is on the way.
That's the way you want to take it.
Everything is not looking good now, but just wait, hold on, just give McCole Hardman a few more weeks. No. And honestly, I'll say this. Sky Moore had 66% of the snap share on offense last week. That's entirely too much, Mark Gunnels. Those should be Richie James's opportunities. I've seen enough of Sky Moore. I have no faith for the rest of the way that he is what it takes to get this Chiefs offense back on track.
Well,
for me,
go ahead.
I'll finish. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you're kind of leaning to my point, though, because when McCole Hardman comes back, why can't he eat into some of those Sky Moore snaps as well?
Sure. I just don't think McCole Hardman is going to be just the way you said it. It made it seem as if okay, well.
That's how you messed up when you talking about it made it seem. There isn't no made it seem. You went to Mizzou, the top journalism school in the country, and you're talking about you made it seem. No, tell me what I said. Don't give me that. It sounded like you said it like this. No, we're real technical on this show, man.
Okay.
And not to mention, Jerick McKinnon has been out. You can poo-poo it.
I think that's who you should have led with instead. If you're talking about the Chiefs offense being off track because of some guys who weren't out there in Sunday Night Football, don't tell me about McCole Hardman. Jerick McKinnon, yes, because on that last drive where Mahomes does have to take a couple dump downs, they go to CEH ultimately because Isaiah Pacheco had been disqualified at that point in time. And so you go to the next running back in line, and Clyde has looked better. But if I'm talking about a dump off situation where I'm trying to get yardage and move the ball down the field fast, I want one out there. And I hear you on that. I know this is going to be a shocker, right? As we transition into our story about the Chiefs being Super Bowl contenders. A lot of people see this game, have seen the recent woes for the offense and say, you know what? I just don't know if this offense has what it takes with the guys who are out there now, or granted, when they get back to full speed, Mark Gunnels, I'm still a little yellow light on being out on them. I still think they can hoist another Lombardi trophy because it's Mahomes. It's the offense. They're not as far away from, you convert in those first two drives. If you get most points they give up to an opponent all year long, I think they use this last stretch of the season to kind of fatten up against some teams that are not as good as they are. They figure some things out offensively. But, yeah, right now they are kind of riding this roller coaster of up and down, consistently inconsistent.
Yeah, and I agree. This offense is not that far away at all. I mean, like you said, they were moving the ball. They were getting in the red zone consistently in Green Bay. They only punted one time. Let me say that one more time. They only punted the ball once Sunday night. But it's the execution in the most important moments when you get in the red zone, when you have a crucial potential game swinging drive, when you're in the Packers territory and you throw an interception targeting Sky Moore. It's those little things, the penalties, when you get a 1st and 10, it goes from 1st and 10 to 1st and 20. Because like you mentioned before, this offense doesn't have the room for error to make up those deficits, right? In the past, 1st and 20, that was like nothing. Like, oh, I need 3 plays to get 20 yards. They'll still get it. I don't feel that same way with this offense. They have to stay on schedule. And a lot of that goes on the tackles, Jawan Taylor and Donovan Smith. They've been penalized a lot this year. That is one thing that does concern me moving forward, considering the lack of explosiveness this offense has.
So are they still Super Bowl contenders in your opinion?
Yes, and it's a 2-part thing for me. It's the fact that you still have Patrick Mahomes, and the bigger part for me is the AFC is watered down. So if you make it to the Super Bowl, how can I not call you a contender if you make it? Because if you look at the AFC right now, who can you say with full confidence you could say is just for sure better than the Chiefs? The Ravens without Mark Andrews that scored 13 points against the Chargers last week?
I think the Dolphins are better.
I mean, but you beat the Dolphins head to head. So I can tell myself, well, yeah, that's cool, but they haven't beat nobody over 500 yet. They beat up on these bad teams to look good. When they play somebody good, they lose. The Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence is hurt now. I mean, I saw it's not as serious as we thought, but still, he lost to the Bengals yesterday, and he played most of that game. So that's not why they lost. It was a tie game when he got hurt. So they probably still would have lost that game even with him. I mean, who else? I don't know. So that's why I think the 1 seed for me is so important this year, because if you get that, you obviously advance to the next round. But then the 2-3 most likely is going to be either a combination. Assuming, just say the Chiefs are the 1 seed. Let's just do that just to make it easy. Let's say Chiefs are the 1.
That's a big assumption, Mark Gunnels. That's a big assumption.
I don't think it is, though.
Because I think at this point for Kansas City to get the 1 seed, you got to win out the rest of the way.
Well, and I think
you can't lose another game.
I think that's very possible. I mean, this is the hardest game this week against Buffalo. After this, you play New England, the Raiders in Kansas City, the Bengals. They look pretty still solid, but I don't see Jake Browning coming to Arrowhead and winning. And then you end your season against the Chargers, who've already pretty much given up on their season. So, I mean, to me, this is the game this week. I'm never going to get into it. But if you win this game, I do think they win out. And I think that'll be enough to get the 1 seed, because they still need the Ravens and the Dolphins to at least lose one more time. But you need the Jags, too, as well. And that's already done. And you got the tiebreaker over them. That's why you only need 1 loss from each team, because the Chiefs own a tiebreaker over all 3 of these teams. And the Ravens and Dolphins play each other. So they both cannot win out. It's impossible. So that cancels each other out. And the Ravens still have to play the 49ers in San Francisco. They have to play the Jaguars in Jacksonville. I feel pretty comfortable saying they're going to lose probably one of those games, probably to the Niners. And if the Dolphins don't, let's say the Dolphins beat the Ravens, whatever, okay? If that's the route it goes, they still have to play the Cowboys and the Bills. So while you don't technically control your own destiny, in a way, I think you kind of do. Because if you went out, I think it's very, very likely you're the 1 seed.
I think for Kansas City, it's too early to start doing the scoreboard math and try and piece things together. Like, they have not played well enough to say, oh, well, we got this, and this. Like, New England, sure, but at this point, KC can beat anybody, and I think they can almost get beaten by just about anybody outside of like the Carolinas and the New Englands of the world. Like, I
can't pencil in the Raiders as a win on Christmas Day.
Not considering how they started the last game against the Raiders, no. I've asked you this before. What's their most convincing win?
The Bears.
Okay, I'll rest my point on that one as we go into our Chiefs preview.
Stop it! You can't do this. You can't escape. You can't make these plays. You can't make these throws.
Come on, give us a sneak preview.
Chiefs preview.
Chiefs and Bills from GHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium Sunday, 3:25 kick. This is Buffalo's Super Bowl. Here it is once again. It's weird. Buffalo always seems to play their Super Bowl in December. Mark, I don't understand how that works.
The shade is crazy.
Let's do like a little injury roundup here with our new date and time, recording Tuesdays at 5:30. We don't have your traditional Wednesday update, but pay attention to those as we're looking at the availabilities for Drew Tranquill, who was being evaluated and left the game with a concussion against Green Bay. Brian Cook, who I did have a little bit of news on that. I don't know if you saw the post I put on X about him and his ankle. Jeremy Fowler reported that it's not broken. Andy Reid kind of danced around that report, but the official Aaron Ladd report, Mark Gunnels, is I saw Brian Cook in the Lambeau visitors locker room after the game. No air cast, no boot, no nothing on that injured left ankle. In fact, he had both of his Timbs on.
Wow.
And, I know if you're a Timbs wearer, right? Like, you know it. Those aren't the easiest shoes to get on, especially if they're brand new. These were not old Timbs. Like, I doubt Brian Cook had some old dusty leather worn Timbs that he could just slip into. Like, Timbs, they do have ankle support, but you got to get your ankle in there. I know sometimes, and I'm not a doctor, I just am pretending to play one on a podcast right now. Sometimes they'll say, like, if you put your shoe on or keep your shoe on, the ankle doesn't have as much room to swell up. So maybe he was doing something like that, but something to monitor here for Brian Cook and his availability. And then Donovan Smith, who was made unavailable to the media. I think it was listed as a neck injury for him coming out of Green Bay. Kansas City, let's just say the injury bug bit Kansas City in Sunday Night Football. Let's hear from Drew. Let's hear from Drew Tranquill's replacement, Jack Cochran. I don't know if it's his replacement, but it's his teammate who stepped in, was second in the team in tackles in Green Bay, kind of talking about what went wrong in the loss on Sunday night. Did you grade your performance today?
I mean, not good enough to get the job done. At the end of the day, the individual performances are what they are, but we all come out here with one goal, and that's to get a win, and we get that done tonight, so that's what I'm thinking about.
Love looked very comfortable. What was missing from the defense tonight?
They had a good plan. You can look at the schemes all you want, but when it comes down to it, I think it's just execution and getting off blocks and tackling. And I think no matter how you draw it up, it comes down to fundamentals, and I think they out-executed their scheme better than we did tonight. So I thought we had a good plan. They had a good plan too. And that's what it comes down to.
Andy Reid made it absolutely clear in his Monday Zoom. It was yesterday. Jack Cochran is not a backup. He's a guy that they see as someone who knows their scheme, has been in the scheme for a while, and can get guys in place. I know he was kind of thrown into the fire, had some ups, had some downs, but if Drew Tranquill does have to miss some time and Nick Bolton's not ready yet, another guy will be monitoring his availability as he works back from that wrist injury. Jack Cochran's the guy wearing the green dot for KC, Mark Gunnels.
Yeah, and that makes me really, really worried. I mean, good kid, hard worker. It's one of those
good kid,
first in the gym, last to leave type guys. I love, I'm not the bad
scrappy.
Yeah, scrappy, hard nosed, sneaky athletic.
You're sick.
But I mean, when you get down to your third string middle linebacker, how can you not have some type of concerns? You would be pretty naive not to. And like I told you, when they were showing on the broadcast several times of just miscommunication, or not even maybe miscommunication, but late communication. I think that's probably a better way to say it. So, I mean, I guess the bright side would be, if he did have to start this week, is the fact that he did get those reps against the Packers. So he has that under his belt. They have some film to clean up, and maybe they can get their calls in quicker and things of that nature. So that is a positive, but at the same time, I'm really, really hoping, and I'm pretty optimistic actually, that Nick Bolton will come back this week.
Kansas City's defense, look, it's no secret they were missing some guys and still are missing some guys as we look for their practice statuses as the week goes on. But I thought there was a point in time, especially in that fourth quarter, where it was time for Kansas City's offense to pick up the defense. Like, yeah, they weren't playing a perfect game. They weren't pitching a shutout. They obviously started the game slow, but they held the game close long enough for KC to have 3 opportunities in the fourth quarter to go ahead and score and take the lead. Like, you talked about KC taking advantage of those situations where it was crunch time, and usually we're used to, all right, they need 4. They're going to go down there and get the score. It hasn't looked that way recently, and I wonder if that changes on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. I got their note here as desperate as they try and cling on to postseason hopes and this watered down AFC, as Mark Gunnels calls it, stepped on. This ain't pure. This ain't that pure AFC that you used to. This is it's stepped on. The Buffalo Bills are currently 6-6. I have them listed 11th in the conference with head-to-head losses to Cincinnati and Denver. They got a lot of teams in front of them. If they want to win, if they want to get to the playoff and win another Super Bowl, still a Super Bowl that they could possibly win this Sunday at Arrowhead Stadium, like they got to start stacking W's very quickly.
Yeah, it's a must win for them. I think this is essentially an elimination game because if you look at their upcoming schedule, it doesn't get much easier. After the Chiefs, they have to play Dallas next week. Then after that, you play the Chargers on the road. You never know. Herbert, still a team you just can't completely overlook. And then they end their year at Miami. So, that's a tough 4 out of your last 5 games you have there. So I think you have to start here. And not to mention, it's the AFC game. And when it comes to tiebreakers and things like that, it's going to matter a lot. And Aaron, did you know they're 3-5 in the AFC? That's their AFC record. You can't fall to 3-6, and then you're looking at tiebreakers. If you're like 9-8, it's going to get really murky there because you got a lot of teams, like you said, that's ahead of them, man. It's going to get ugly in there. You got the Texans, the Broncos ahead of them, the Browns, the Colts. They're all like 7-5. The Broncos are 6-6, and the Broncos beat the Bills head to head. So they're playing behind the 8 ball here. That's why this game does give me room for caution because they typically already play good. Man, Maverick is going crazy.
Is he a Bills fan? Is Mav a Bills fan? Is that what it comes down to?
I don't know, man. I don't know. That's crazy. His mom just snatched him up, so hopefully he's good now. Yeah. Yeah, you go ahead.
Well, maybe Mav was jovial because he put in his Fade Gunnels ticket. Let's go to Vegas, baby.
Place your bets.
Oh, there it is. 2 touchdowns. Win by at least 3.
Let's go to Vegas with Mark.
Oh, man, this has been a brutal year.
I love how, Mark Gunnels is on a million podcasts. When he's not on a million podcasts, he's also in space. And I've seen you flexing your picks in other podcasts, oh man, it's been a great year. Oh my goodness, I've just been dominating pick'em across my other podcasts, and then you come back here, you come back to Coast, and then you get humbled.
Bro, so let me tell you real quick. And one of my other podcasts,
we don't care about your other podcasts.
Bro, I'm second, and we picked against the spread in every game every week, and I'm second out of 12 people.
Maybe you know other teams better than you know the Chiefs at this point. That's what I'm starting to believe. I'm starting to believe that you don't know KC. This is what happens when you don't check in. This is what happens when you don't come home.
Here you go.
Mark Gunnels went 1-2 last week. Here were his 3 plays. He picked the Rashee Rice over 47.5. That number should go up. That should never be. I'm venturing to guess that 47.5 will probably not. That'll change this upcoming week.
Yeah, I'm not playing Rashee Rice this week.
And the 2 misses, which Butker over 2.5 extra points. I mean, I bet when they started going for 2, you were like, no!
Bro, I was so mad, bro. I was mad. So, like, we talked about it earlier. I wasn't mad, like, as just a football fan, but like for my picks, I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
That's just free money. It's just a bad bet. I'll say it time and time again. So that was a miss. And then Mark took the Chiefs to cover the spread at 6.5. Kansas City lost by 8 points. Sunday Night Football 1-2 last week makes it 11-24-1. It is a dark hole that Mark Gunnels is going to attempt to climb his way out of. Once again, this week with 3 more plays for our listeners, if they're even listening anymore to his plays. Mark,
wow, this is nasty, bro. You're so nasty. All right, so I'm going a little different route here. I'm taking a play on the over-under in this game, the total points. It's at 47.5. I like the under in this game. I think you're looking at like a 24-20 type game, 21-17-ish. I think back in Arrowhead, the defense gets back on track after a bad week. And the Bills have a really good defense as well. So I don't see this being some type of shootout in Arrowhead. And with both teams playing for a lot, Chiefs playing for the 1 seed, the Bills fighting just to get in the playoffs, I think you see a very physical defensive type of game. So I like that. And then also, this may surprise you a little bit. So the Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites. I'm taking the Bills to cover the 2.5. I think it's a really good chance the Bills win this game, as much as I don't want to say that. But I think they do cover the 2.5 points. I think this is going to be a really close game, like I just mentioned. The Bills come off a bye as well. I think that plays in their advantage. They should have probably beat the Eagles 2 weeks ago. They should have won that game. So I think you can still take a lot from that if you're Buffalo. And they've had success in Arrowhead the last couple of years in the regular season. So I think they come in here very, very confident. So they think they cover that small number at 2.5. And then my last play, I'm going to take the over on Kelce receiving yards at 78.5. He's cleared this number in his last 2 games. I'm pretty sure Taylor Swift would be there in Arrowhead. Just the magnitude of this game. He only had 5 targets in Green Bay and still cleared that number. I think you see his targets go up. I think they get creative and trying to get him the ball more against while this Bills defense is really good, they still do miss Milano, their best covered linebacker in the middle. So I think there will be some opportunities for Kelce to get some yak there. So those are my 3 plays. The under on the total points at 47.5. The Bills covering the 2.5-point spread, and Kelce over receiving yards at 78.5.
I think this is one of your strongest tickets that you've put in this year. Mark Gunnels delivers 3 more plays from Vegas. He's battered, he's bloody, he's bruised, but he's back for more as the Chiefs try and win Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. Let's get to this voicemail really quickly. Kind of an interesting question. I actually don't know your answer to this, Mark Gunnels. Let's hear the voicemail and then you can answer first.
All right, so I was wondering, how long have you been a Chiefs fan for? Like, did you grow up around Kansas City? I've always just wondered. Thank you. Bye.
It's because you never in KC. You know, people never see you in town. You always post you're just a kid from KC, and then we never seen you around town. You don't come check in. So what's the deal?
Well, for those that don't know, I was born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri, South Kansas City to be exact. I was just born into this, man. As long as I can remember, I used to go to church every Sunday, and I would be upset because it would last so long. It would go to like 1 o'clock. That'd be like halftime of the Chiefs game because the Chiefs weren't playing primetime back then, Aaron. I know you're not used to that, but they were playing noon games like regularly back in the day. So 1 o'clock was like halftime, and I'll get back. It'd be like the beginning of the third quarter. I'm like, dang, I already missed the first half. But I went with my grandparents. They weren't playing that. So, and then the pastor would always like make a joke like, I know you want to get back home to the Chiefs game. I'm going to wrap up here in 10 minutes. Then another 30 minutes go by. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, come on, stop lying.
Mark, you try to rush the Lord, man. You can't rush God. He not on your timing.
Service started 9. Why is it gonna be 4 hours? 4 hours is crazy. But yeah, man, I was just born into it, bro. I don't have like a specific moment. It was just natural, honestly.
One of the good things about traveling, working with KSHB, going to Lambeau this past week is like I get to meet like a lot of different Chiefs fans now, and I think it's been fun. Like a lot of the people that I met this past week, not from Kansas City, like a lot of Omaha Chiefs fans. I've met a lot of Chiefs fans from freaking Milwaukee. Like KC is expanding into that realm now where like you've picked up a lot of bandwagon fans. You've picked up a lot of casual fans as well. Like my grandma is in her 80s, loves Patrick Mahomes because it's such an exciting brand of football. It's something we've never really seen before. They kind of have this Heatles or this like dynasty feel to them. So yes, Mark was born into it, but it's okay if you're listening, rocking with us, and maybe you have a different way of joining into the kingdom. That was
how dare you not mention the Swifties?
It's true. I don't know how I don't know how I could miss that. That's the Chiefs' most loyal followers right now.
You saw her walk into the stadium?
Yeah, I like was wrapping up countdown to kickoff, Chiefs coast to coast, or not Chiefs coast to coast. Gosh darn it. I was wrapping up countdown to kickoff on KSHB 41. You're home of the Chiefs. When you have so many brands, man, it's and these two blacked out Chevys like drive right by, and I was like, this is either Simone Biles or like Joe Biden. And yeah, like they put her into like the exclusive entrance. You know, she didn't go through the Gen Pop gate and like just screaming fans, hysteria. Like people talk about like pop stars and having that aura and like all the rabid fans and stuff. Like it's true. It was happening. Like
I was gonna ask you, like, did you feel the aura? Like you felt it? Like did it go through did you get chills in your body?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I did not. I did not.
It wasn't like seeing like
I was freezing cold. So yeah, I did get a couple chills go through my body, but none of it was from the aura. I'm sorry. Like,
okay.
No, it was cool, and I'm hoping for a good weekend. This weekend we got Kansas, Missouri from Allen Fieldhouse on Saturday, and then
you gonna be there?
I'll be anchoring. I'll miss this one. I went to the last two, and honestly, I'm expecting something similar to happen this time around. So I'll be at the station this year, but I'll be out at Arrowhead on Sunday.
What's your prediction this weekend?
I think Bills win. I'm gonna agree with you. I don't think Kansas City's been playing well enough.
I didn't say Bills win. I said Bills cover. By the way,
I'm saying right now Bills win. The game's more important to them. I think Kansas City wants to get right, but I think they have to hit rock bottom first, and I still don't think that they've hit rock bottom. I really don't.
Okay. I mean, yeah, it can go either way. It should be a fascinating game for sure.
Appreciate y'all rocking with us. Chiefs Coast to Coast episode 67 is in the books. We'll be back same time. That's Tuesdays at 5:30 here on Arrowhead Pride. For Mark Gunnels out in LA, Steven Serta behind the board. I'm Aaron Ladd, Coast to Coast.
We out.